Hi there guys, this is Ramon from London, England. We're going to be talking about the Telecaster and setting up a Telecaster for blues guitar. I know that you may think that it's pretty obvious, and normally a Telecaster can sound just great outside the the box. But I'm just going to sort of talk you through a few modifications I've done to my sort of Blackguard 50s style Tele, just to make it a little bit easier to play blues on, So, basically the sound of the Telecaster is fantastic, and normally you can buy a Mexican Road Worn series or something like that, and they're always going to be a great guitar. One of the main reasons is their neck. They have, the Blackguard Tele has a great neck and a nice bit of wood, and that's really useful for when you're playing, you're playing bends, because you want to have that support, especially the first finger sort of bends. Another thing which is really great is obviously the pickups, because unlike a Stratocaster, we've got three pretty close to each other. These are quite wide apart, so that in between sound it's quite a nice. Works really well for sort of T-Bone Walker. So that's a really kind of nice quality about Tele. So the kind of modifications I do. Really, the first thing is I put a set of sort of my favourite string gauge, which is 11s down to 49. I'm playing in E standard. The reason I use these strings is it just gives me a little bit of it's a little bit harder to vibrate, which I like, especially if I'm and to have these bigger strings, you really need bigger frets, just to make your life easier. So the first thing I would suggest is, if the frets are not sort of big enough, changing the frets. Obviously I like Jim Dunlop's 6100, but there's some other great Jessica, I think they're called. They're really good frets, and the German company. So that's something you might want to look at. It's just changing the frets up. Depending on your string gauge, if you've got if you're playing 9s, then you can pretty much get away with a vintage style fret, But really, you want to be dancing on that fret, so you don't want to be sort of playing too much on the wood, because then it's going to be harder to bend, harder to do your vibrato. So that's my first thing, is have a look at your frets. Now tuners, I know this seems pretty obvious thing, but I like the sort of original ones. Now, in my small mind, maybe I think they add to the tone. Who knows if they do or not? But I just like the kind of original ones. You have to sometimes go down before you can go up. But you might want to make a change there. You might want to put Spurzels on if you're using the guitar a lot in the studio and you need to really have fine tuning. Maybe these are not going to be sufficient. So another sort of little modification you can do. Obviously the nut is very important on your string gauge, and you want to get that nut well lubricated with your string tree, making sure that when you're doing your bends, that this is all sort of working nicely. And this, you can put graphite and Vaseline. Some people put in that nut, just so that when you're doing your bends, then the string returns to pitch. Pickups. Let's talk about pickups. I really like the earliest style pickup. Now, you guys maybe tell me if this is wound with vintage wire, which is because I think this is 13K or 14K. This is a Don Mayer pickup here in the bridge, and it's kind of like a broadcaster, almost like a lap steel, early Fender lap steel pickup, which is my favourite. I like the really early pickups on a Telecaster, because you're thinking about a Telecaster, it's almost like a sort of banjo style guitar. The strings are going through the body, so it can sound very much sort of, I just find that these kind of earlier pickups tend to pick up the string vibration better, because it's quite tight here. There's not much vibration happening. And I think also that the wire is thinner wire than thicker wire is better for a Telecaster. It's more vintage, and it's going to get you more that sort of early Telecaster sound, which I love. It's not not too, it gives you that spank, and it's not too bright either. You know, it never gets too high. Sorry, too harsh. I think some of the 60s pickups were a little bit harsh sounding, and these earlier ones are just very musical, especially when you're using that overdrive. So really, you know, think about that pickup in the bridge. That's kind of like that's really the most important position, is that pickup in the bridge, you know, and then you can base your neck pickup from that. This is actually a 60s style pickup made by Mojo Pickups in the neck here, so it's nothing special. It's just a 60s style pickup. I don't tend to play too much with distortion on the neck, so I just need a good, solid, sort of clean sound. So it's not really that important for me. The neck pickup on a telly, as long as it sounds half decent, I'm happy with that, you know. The magic really happens, I guess, in between. So, because that's what you really want to have, a really great rhythm sound. So really, you might want to be throwing in and out some neck position pickups just to make it sure that it balances with this bridge pickup. And obviously I've got this older style bridge pickup, and it took a few goes to get a neck pickup that kind of balanced and really sort of brought out the best of the two, you know. You know, because that's what really you're trying to get to, is that great sort of in between sound. You might also want to really, another thing is think about the capacitor, okay, here, because this is what we do a lot on the Telecaster, is we just roll down a little bit on that tone, bring in the cap, and remember the capacitor is going to be in the circuit. Even if you've got it full up, you're still going to have a cap in the circuit. So I'm using the Cornell Doublier, I think they're called, capacitor, standard value for a vintage telly. And you know, and I use that a lot just to give me that kind of bloom and that nice sort of marshmallow sort of overdrive. And so that's really what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a super high sort of trebly sort of sound. So that capacitor I use quite a lot. You know, that's quite important. You know, now that some people, you have a four-way switch, so you can have series and parallel combinations of these pickups. That's actually very useful. I don't have that on this guitar, but I used to have that, and I kind of miss that in a way. That's actually a really good thing. Maybe I'm going to go back to having that. And it just gives you kind of a volume boost, which is really useful. So that's really, you know, there's not much to say other than, you know, just have a good basis, you know, these are so simple, guys, they're so simple, but if you can set them up in a really good way, it can become your main guitar. And really, this is probably my favourite guitar that I own, just because it is simplicity. I just want to talk a little bit about the fact that because it is so simple, any modification you do can have a drastic change. And this bridge here and the saddles is really important on a Telecaster. You really want cold rolled steel and thin original steel. A lot of these bridge plates are thick, you know, the metal is thick, and it dulls the sound of the Telecaster. Which is what I've got with this one. This is actually a Goto bridge plate, and I'm going to be changing this one out soon, because on my other tellies I've got a much thinner style bridge plate, and it really does. I think Fender are making all of their bridge plates like the originals, which are quite thin. So this is a modification that I will be doing, is changing this for a thinner bridge plate. I know it's going to sound better. And these are Glendale brass saddles, if you can see there. And that's another really big sort of thing you can do to improve the tone or change the sound to make it more original sounding. It's, you know, the brass, obviously this is a 50, so it's brass saddles, but the Glendale ones are compensated as well. Okay, and the really nice thing about the Glendale ones is they kind of slot in their shape so that they sit beside each other quite nicely. So this is another sort of modification that I would definitely, I'm really, you know, I'm recording a lot, so I like to have a well compensated guitar. I don't want to have, you know, out of tune notes up here. So that's a really, really important thing. And these brass saddles by Glendale sound fantastic. You know, I didn't get them for free. I'm not promoting them, I paid for these, but definitely a great modification to have in your Tele. And really, that's basically it. There's nothing really much more to say. You know, I mean, this is now sort of a great blues machine. I use it for other styles as well, but I really love playing blues and a bit of jazz as well. I play a bit of jazz on this. And, you know, with the string gauge, the right frets, some good pickups, I mean, you're good to go. It's such a great guitar to, you know, a great canvas to get things back to basic and make your life simple. And it's never going to be better than having a Tele. So hope that's helped. I'm going to play you out with some blues. Thanks a lot, guys. See you soon.